Buckle up, America, your cheap ride is leaving the station. And no, you can't chase it down. Remember when you could hop on a bus for like the price of a large coffee? Those were the days when a few bucks could take you miles away, offering a sense of freedom and adventure without breaking the bank. Ah, the good old days when your biggest worry was if the seat next to you would be taken by a snorer. Nowadays, you sit next to a guy on the bus who thinks the word Bath is a city in England. He smells so bad, air pollution gives him competition medals. In fact, sometimes you're sitting next to somebody that's so fat that their shadow has stretch marks. But enough of traveling reality, let's move on. Those days might be gone, folks. The landscape of affordable travel is changing, and not for the better. The once bustling bus stations are now eerily quiet, and the seats that used to be filled with eager travelers are now empty. It's like a ghost town, but with less tumbleweed and more forgotten luggage. Cheap bus travel, the kind that lets you crisscross the country without draining your bank account, is fading faster than your tan lines. The open road, once accessible to everyone, is becoming a luxury that fewer and fewer can afford. It's like trying to find a unicorn at a petting zoo. And no, it's not just because those buses smelled vaguely of fecal feet and questionable life choices. Sure, the experience wasn't always glamorous, but it was a lifeline for many. It was a way to visit family, even dysfunctional ones, explore new places, or simply get to work. Plus, where else could you hear life stories from strangers at 3 a.m.? Besides the fact that you're listening to a coke-skinny prostitute with a lazy eye and smelt of cigarette smoke, something else is going on, something that affects millions of Americans who rely on affordable transportation. Rising operational costs, dwindling subsidies, and increased competition from other modes of transport are all playing a part in this decline. It's like a bad reality show, but with fewer roses and more budget cuts. So put on your investigative hats, because we're diving deep into the bumpy ride of America's disappearing cheap bus system. We'll explore the economic factors, the policy decisions, and the human stories behind this shift. Stay with us as we uncover why your cheap ride is leaving the station and what it means for the future of travel in America. Spoiler alert, it's not because the buses are running away to join the circus. Once upon a time, bus travel was the backbone of American mobility. It connected small towns to big cities, and people to opportunities. It was a symbol of freedom and accessibility. And let's be honest, it was also a great place to people watch. But today, the scene is starkly different. Modern-day bus stations are shadows of their former selves, with fewer passengers and empty ticket counters. The buses that once roared down highways now sit idle, waiting for a revival that may never come. It's like they're on an extended coffee break. We'll hear from passengers who depended on these services, bus drivers who have seen the changes firsthand, and transportation experts who will shed light on what the future holds. This is more than just a story about buses. It's a story about people, communities, and the changing face of America. And maybe, just maybe, we'll find out if anyone actually misses those bus station hot dogs. You remember those, don't you? The ones that tasted like mystery meat at a school cafeteria? So buckle up and join us on this journey. Because even though your cheap ride might be leaving the station, the story of America's love affair with the open road is far from over. And who knows, maybe one day, we'll all be reminiscing about the good old days of budget bus travel while sipping overpriced lattes. Let's rewind a bit. Remember Greyhound? That iconic dog used to be synonymous with affordable travel. Greyhound was the OG budget bus, hauling people across state lines for decades. Then came the scrappy upstarts like Megabus, flashing those crazy low fares and turning bus travel into a game of digital hot potato. It was a beautiful, chaotic time for budget travelers. But like a romantic comedy with a predictable plot, the honeymoon phase couldn't last forever. Today's bus landscape is a bit more complicated. Sure, you can still find cheap fares, but they're often hidden behind confusing websites and algorithms that seem to change more often than a college student's relationship status. And let's not forget about the shrinking schedules. Remember when you could catch a bus at almost any hour? Now, you better hope your schedule aligns with the one daily departure that doesn't require you to take out a second mortgage. It's enough to make you want to just stay home and watch reruns of planes, trains, and automobiles, which ironically doesn't feature any buses. Section 4. Why your $10 bus ticket went MIA. So what happened? Why is cheap bus travel going the way of the dinosaurs and Blockbuster? Let's dive into the reasons behind this disappearing act. Well, grab your detective magnifying glasses because here's the lowdown. It's a mix of economic pressures, changing consumer habits, and a lack of investment in public transportation. Remember when gas was cheap? Yeah, neither do buses. The cost of fuel has been steadily increasing over the years, and this has had a significant impact on the cost of running bus services. Fuel prices have been on a roller coaster ride, and those costs get passed down to, you guessed it, the passenger. When fuel prices spike, bus companies have no choice but to raise ticket prices to cover their expenses. California gas prices are so crazy, even my car is considering remote work. I'm fueling my car 1 gallon at a time, like it's an IV drip. It's ridiculous. Remember those ride-sharing apps everyone loves to complain about? They've revolutionized the way we think about transportation, offering convenience and flexibility that traditional bus services struggle to match. They've been eating into the bus market, especially for shorter trips. People are increasingly opting for the convenience of ride-sharing services, even if it means paying a bit more. Why wait for a bus when you can summon a car with a few taps on your phone? The immediacy and ease of use of these apps have made them a popular choice, further eroding the customer base for bus companies. The bus industry is shrinking, with fewer companies controlling more routes. This consolidation means less competition, which often leads to higher prices and fewer options for travelers. With fewer companies in the game, there's less incentive to keep prices low. This lack of competition can make it difficult for budget-conscious travelers to find affordable options. Less competition usually means, you guessed it, higher prices. Let's be honest, the days of finding a super cheap bus ticket are becoming a thing of the past. America hasn't exactly been prioritizing public transportation. In many parts of the country, public transit systems are underfunded and neglected, making it challenging to maintain affordable and reliable bus services. Underfunding and outdated infrastructure don't exactly scream cheap and efficient. When public transportation systems are neglected, it becomes harder to offer low-cost options to travelers. Government policies and funding decisions play a crucial role in the state of public transportation. Without adequate investment, it's difficult to keep bus services running smoothly and affordably. For many people, the rising cost of bus tickets is just one more strain on their budget. As prices go up, it becomes harder for those who rely on buses to make ends meet. Some people are even forced to find alternative ways to get around, like walking long distances or waiting for infrequent bus services. This can be especially challenging for those in rural or underserved areas. Unreliable schedules and long wait times can make bus travel frustrating and inconvenient. When buses don't run on time, it can disrupt people's daily routines and make it harder to rely on public transportation. As a result, some people are turning to other forms of transportation like biking or carpooling to get where they need to go. While these options can be more sustainable, they may not be practical for everyone. Planning a trip has become more complicated as well. With fewer bus routes and higher prices, travelers need to be more strategic about how they get from point A to point B. Online booking platforms can help, but they also highlight the limited options available. When affordable bus tickets are hard to come by, it can be discouraging for those looking to travel on a budget. The decline of affordable bus travel is a complex issue with no easy solutions. It involves a mix of economic factors, changing consumer preferences, and systemic challenges within the public transportation system. However, there is hope. With the right investments and policy changes, it's possible to revitalize the bus industry and make affordable travel options available once again. Until then, travelers will need to navigate the current landscape and make the best choices they can with the options available. So next time you wonder why your $10 bus ticket went MIA, remember the bigger picture and the many factors at play. The journey may be challenging, but with awareness and advocacy, we can work towards a future where affordable bus travel is once again a reality for everyone. Section 5. The little guy loses again. Here's the thing about all of this. It's not just about missing out on cheap vacations. The decline of cheap bus travel hits low-income communities the hardest. For many people, buses aren't a luxury, they're a lifeline. They're the only way to get to work, school, or to visit family. When those options disappear or become too expensive, it traps people in a cycle of limited opportunities. So while those who can afford it might grumble about booking a pricier flight, others are left wondering how they'll get to their minimum wage job across town. Section 6. By the numbers. Bus travel is on the decline. It's not just a minor dip, it's a significant trend that's been unfolding over the past decade. Okay, time for some hard-hitting statistics, because nothing says compelling argument like cold, hard data. Let's dive into the numbers and see what's really going on. Between 2012 and 2019, intercity bus ridership in the US dropped by a whopping 22%. That's nearly a quarter of the passengers just disappearing. This isn't just a blip on the radar. It's a sustained decline that shows no signs of reversing. The reasons behind this trend are multifaceted and complex. One major factor is the rise of alternative transportation options. With the advent of ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft, people have more convenient and often faster ways to get around. That's not a dip, that's a full-on belly flop into the pool of despair. And it's not just urban areas feeling the impact. Rural communities are getting hit particularly hard, with many losing bus service altogether. For these areas, the bus isn't just a convenience, it's a lifeline. On-time performance is an issue as well. Buses are on time about as much as you find matching socks in the laundry. Imagine living in a small town where the nearest grocery store is miles away and the only way to get there is by bus. Now imagine that bus service is suddenly gone. Imagine a world without Amazon Prime, but for basic transportation. It's a harsh reality for many who rely on buses for their daily needs. While bus fares are still generally cheaper than flying, they've been creeping up steadily, outpacing inflation. This makes it harder for people on tight budgets to afford even this basic mode of transportation. The rising costs are a double-edged sword. On one hand, they reflect the increasing operational expenses for bus companies. On the other, they make bus travel less accessible for the very people who need it most. So much for that whole budget-friendly thing. The decline in bus travel is a complex issue with no easy solutions. But it's clear that something needs to change if we want to keep this vital service alive. Whether it's through government intervention, innovative business models, or community initiatives. The future of bus travel depends on our collective efforts to address these challenges, and it certainly doesn't help when you have corporations that are about as logical as a screen door on a submarine. Let's not let bus travel become a relic of the past. It's time to rethink, reimagine, and reinvigorate this essential mode of transportation for the benefit of all. Section 7. Can America fix its bus problem? Maybe, maybe not. So, is there any hope for the humble bus? Can we bring back those glorious days of cheap fares and convenient routes? The answer, like most things in life, is complicated. Some argue that investing in high-speed rail could be the solution, connecting cities and reducing reliance on cars. Others believe that expanding bus routes and making them more efficient is the way to go. Of course, all of this requires money and political will, two things that are often in short supply when it comes to public transportation. So, in plain English, fuck it, just drive.